The mid-2000s here in Malaysia saw the rise in popularity for multi-purpose vehicle or MPV. But back then, most multi-purpose vehicles are highly priced due to its bigger size and large engine capacity. As such, there was a gap in the market for budget-friendly MPV. The Avanza was Toyota answers to that gap in the market. The first Toyota Avanza was launched back in Malaysia in 2004 with a price tag of around 60,000 ringgit to 70,000 ringgit. The Avanza was essentially the byproduct of Toyota and Daihatsu Indonesia and is co-developed with its twin, the Daihatsu Xenia, which is not sold here in Malaysia. Here in Malaysia, the Toyota Avanza was built in the Pro 2 facility as a CKD unit with parts imported from Indonesia. This is evident by the door handle of the car, which is shared with most Pro 2 products during that time. Fast forward to 2007 and the facelifted Toyota Avanza, bring a host of new safety features, a larger 1.5-litre engine, as well as a slightly more expensive price tag. The top spec Avanza 1.5G over here, back then, retails for 74,000 ringgit on the road. Personally, for me, back then, the Avanza was somewhat of a unique proposition. Its body design feature an upright silhouette as well as a higher ground clearance compared to most MPV at the time, which feature a low-to-the-ground body style like the Toyota Wish or Honda Stream. Well, that is because that even though the Toyota Avanza was labeled as an MPV, underneath its body, it is actually built on a semi-unibody construction. The front part of the Avanza is actually body-on-frame, while the back part of the car is monocoque chassis, which translates to a hybrid chassis system. Not only that, in terms of its drivetrain, the Toyota Avanza was also front-engine rear-wheel drive layout, in which the rear-wheel drive is using a solid rear axle. Now, this type of layout is actually more common for SUV or pickup trucks compared to an MPV, hence giving the Avanza its unique proposition. Underneath the hood of the Toyota Avanza, so this car actually came with two engine choices for the facelifted model. So you have a 1.3 and a 1.5 VVTi 4-cylinder petrol engine. Now, in terms of horsepower for the 1.5 litre, it makes 107 horsepower with 141 Nm of torque. The Avanza is available with two transmission, which is a 5-speed manual or a 4-speed automatic. But the top spec Avanza 1.5G is only available with the automatic. Now, one interesting fact about this car is it actually has one of the best in-class turning radius, coming in at 4.7 meter, making it extremely maneuverable in urban or tight situation. This is largely thanks to that rear-wheel drive layout, where the front wheel does not have any drive axle that disturb the turning radius. Overall, in terms of power, back then, compared to other MPVs in the market, the 1.5 litre is definitely much smaller compared to most other MPV, where the norm is 2 litre and above. But then again, the Toyota Avanza is supposed to be the budget-friendly MPV. Okay, stepping into the cabin of the Toyota Avanza, and this is where you start to see where Toyota did a few cost cutting to keep the price down. Number one, the steering doesn't even come with any adjustment. That's right, you can't even adjust tilt or telescopic on the steering wheel. And personally, my average height of 167 centimeter of height, do find that in my average or ideal sitting position, the steering is a little bit far reach. Now, on top of that, the design of the dashboard over here is very clean and simple and actually quite pleasing to the eye. For the top spec model like this one, and for the facelift, it actually features this lighter cream interior, where the pre-facelift car actually features a dark color dashboard. Now, speaking of the dashboard itself, in terms of material, it is using hard plastic, but it is very durable. For instance, this car is more than 10 years old, and this dashboard looks as good as new. Now, on top of the dashboard, I do see dual front airbag for the passenger as well as the driver. Now, the Toyota Avanza, only the top spec 1.5G back then, is come equipped with this safety feature. It is also paired together on the outside with the ABS brake with electronic brake force distribution, as well as 15-inch alloy wheels. Things in the second and third row is not that much better compared to the front. Despite its large body size, okay, the space in the cabin is just okay. In terms of headroom, you do have a lot of headroom, but legroom is rather small. Further adding to the lack of legroom is the huge center transmission tunnel. While the narrow body of the car makes it a bit hard to squeeze three adults across right next to each other. But with that being said, the cabin itself is quite airy thanks to its large roof and large glass. And in the second row, it does equip with aircon vents with 3 blower switches. So even passenger in the second and third row will get some air conditioning. Now, the one thing I like about the Avanza in the second row is how easy it is to fold the second row of seat. Even kids can understand the procedure. It's just a flick of 2 levers and you can tumble forward the rear seat, giving you access to the third row. Now, once in the third row, space is not the best, but you can recline the rear seat to give you slightly better comfort. Overall, with the second and third row, it is fairly the same feeling, in which the legroom is just sufficient, good amount of headroom, and you can adjust the rear reclining of the seat. So here in the back of the Toyota Avanza, so this is where actually Toyota also did some cost cutting. So unlike most traditional hatch where you can open the rear hatch using the switch at the number plate area or the garnish area, the Avanza, you can't do that. Okay, so the only way to open the rear hatch is by the lever at the side of the door or using the turn key to open the rear hatch. Okay, but if you do open the rear hatch, as you can see, the opening is very big and very wide. So with all seats up, space behind the third row is not that much. It's only about 128 liters of space. But if you fold the third row, so as you can see, if you fold the third row, it transforms into a very big cargo capacity. Same thing also if you fold the second row of seat, the Avanza can be an adapt cargo hauler. But of course, if you are going to use this car with 7 seats, okay, it's actually very simple to set up. Unfortunately, the third row, okay, because as I said, this is a budget-friendly MPV, it doesn't come with the split folding design, okay, the back. So you actually need to configure the car, whether you want to carry more cargo or more passenger, okay. It's unable to split the seat independently at the back here. So here I am in the driver's seat of the Toyota Avanza. So what's the Avanza like to drive? So the first thing I want to highlight over here is that the Avanza is a family MPV at heart, and it doesn't pretend to be anything else. So the 1.5 liter VVTi engine in this car, it makes 107 horsepower with 141 Newton meters of torque. Now, by MPV standard, by a normal car standard, actually, those figures are relatively low, right? But we have to bear in mind that the Avanza is a budget-friendly MPV built to a certain price point. So with that being said, let's keep an open mind about the driving impression of this Avanza. Is that the first thing I would like to highlight is that the Avanza is definitely not the fastest car in the world, right? The 1.5 liter engine paired to the 4-speed automatic and then power is sent to the rear-wheel drive. It takes quite a bit of time to get to 100 kilometers an hour, and getting there, the engine makes a lot of noise. Yeah, the RPM will go up to 4,000 to 5,000 RPM to give you the most torque. But it's not really to say that the Avanza is very, very lethargic. I would say that from off the line, like from a standstill, the initial response of the acceleration is rather good. You do have that instant kick, when you mash the throttle. It's only when you get to a certain like 2000 or 3000 RPM, and there is a certain dead spot in the power band in which you really have to rev the engine to get most of the power. The gear itself, you do have the option of overdrive if you want to hold the third gear and get the most out of that high RPM. But yeah, the Avanza, it doesn't come with any Tiptronic transmission or the plus minus, right? The gear change itself, also I would say that the logic is pretty solid. Okay, you mesh on the throttle, it will down kick for you, right? So in terms of its gearbox, the downshift is very, very good. Now in terms of the ride and handling, so this is also where I would say the Avanza don't really excel that well. The suspension setup for this car, the spring is definitely softly sprung. From like slow to medium speed, I would say that the car is relatively comfortable, and going over any angulation in the road, it is quite okay. It is only when you get to higher speed, like around 80 to 100 km an hour, and the softly sprung suspension makes itself apparent. So the oscillation of the car going up and down, especially in the back, it's so much that I myself, if riding in the back of this car, will induce motion sickness. Alright, okay. So bear in mind, if you are carrying a lot of passengers in this car, or just two passengers in general, going at higher speed will get the ride pretty busy and somewhat bouncy as well. In terms of its insulation, I would say it's decent for the price point. It's not that fairly loud inside here. Only when you start accelerating and the engine reach the higher RPM, then the cabin is filled with noise. In terms of, again, the driving position for this car, the steering can't be adjusted, and I can't help that the steering angle feels a bit like a lorry or a truck, in which it's slightly more upright than a traditional car. But once you drive this car, after a while, you will get used to it fairly quickly. It's just that for myself, I do find that sometimes the steering is a bit far reach for my liking, and if I adjust my chair nearer to get the reach, then my feet will be smashed against the pedal. If I move the chair back, my feet has a better leg room, but the steering is too far away. Alright, so bear that in mind. If you are planning to drive the car a lot, make sure you drive one of these and actually feel the driver's seat, whether it is up, whether you are able to fit in the driver's seat. Alright, generally the Avanza is an comfortable car to drive. It's just that you should not be driving this car at high speed. For city use or for urban use, the car is relatively agreeable. And then don't forget that this car also has that extremely tight turning circle, 4.7. So the Avanza, despite being a 7-seater car, maneuvers quite well in small environment, right? Even like a simple 3-point turn, you can actually make it in just one simple U-turn, which is quite good. The fact is that the Avanza, as it was originally meant for, is a budget family MPV to carry 7 people at a fairly modest price. And for most people, especially those who has families, the Avanza is generally a good enough car for their everyday use. So there it is, guys, the first generation Toyota Avanza, a car that Toyota built to fill the gap in the market. Essentially, the recipe for the Avanza is quite successful. This particular model, back in 2006, represent 40% of the new Toyota car sales in Malaysia. And this recipe resulted in even more manufacture following this trend. Essentially, Avanza made its way to other manufacturers in the form of the Pro2 Alza, Nissan Grand Livina, and even Nazar Citra. People love compact, reliable MPVs. With that being said though, the second generation Toyota Avanza, which is launched in 2012, is not as successful. As such, the Avanza nameplate is discontinued completely in 2022, and in its place, the replacement was the Toyota Veloz, launched in 2022 with a completely new chassis by DNGA, or Daihatsu New Global Architecture. Nevertheless, the Avanza still remains an icon and one of the pioneers for budget-friendly MPV here in Malaysia.